people, they mess it up. So
Here we are. We are live with Paul Pape for the first time. We're going to talk to you about you. You've been a TEDx speaker, an author, a creative business strategist, known as the Santa for Nerds. And we're going to get into your whole story. But welcome to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
thank you very much for having me. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing fine. We love talking to people from all the world, over the world. Like you've got a bunch of things going on, but we're going to talk to you today about like your creative player's handbook to business and the other ideas. The big topic is from starving artist to thriving creative entrepreneur. And then we've got your links to your gamifybusiness.com podcast and your Instagram, Paul Pape Designs. But before we get to the heart of that, I always ask a couple questions of anybody on my podcast. A couple of questions are, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me is honestly, like as an artist for Paul Pape Designs, what motivated me most was being able to bring a little bit of joy or a little bit of art into anyone's life. Arts is one of those things that can seem like out of reach for people or nebulous. And when I started that business, the whole point was to create custom things for people, something that they personally wanted and would keep as a keepsake. And so that's kind of where the Santa part of the Santa for Nerds came from. For Gamify Business, the whole motivation here is after 20 years of being a successful artist who's built a pretty good reputation, I wanted to show other creatives that it is possible for you to have the exact same career. We're given the tools to be creative, but we're not given the tools on how to be a business. And so I tried to simplify it in a way that other people can learn from it without having to get an MBA and just go out there and be a successful business. And it's really not as complicated as it sounds. And would you say the motivation or why do I keep doing it was the second question? Yeah. Honestly, I love my job. I love both aspects of my job. I've been a solopreneur for, like I said, over 20 years. And I've never woken up and thought, oh man, I got to go to work. It is genuinely something that fills me with joy. So
it's good to be that, a working artist instead of like the starving artist. Because, musicians we have, especially in the indie scene, we've got like this kind of badge of honor. You got the badge of honor of, I want to be like Lou Reed and the Velvets when they weren't making any money. I want to be like Alex Choden when he was in Big Star, when he wasn't making any money. So they say, it's a badge of honor to be like that. But it's like, no, it's like, don't you want to be successful doing what you love?
Right. I mean, I find there's nothing wrong with being able to pay my bills, to be able to eat 3 squares a day. That's a nice feeling. I'd rather go that route any day than to be, a struggling artist. I despise that term starving artist. And because especially here in the United States, it's not only a badge of honor, but it seems to be this like cloak that you have to wear. If that's something, if you love what you do, if there's a passion behind it, you have to wear this mantle of being poor because your joy should fill that gap between what you do and what you get paid. And it just irks me beyond belief to say that has to be the case. It's like, if you look at anyone, I mean, you're a musician, so you understand, arts is everywhere. Everything that we as humans use to relax at the end of our hard day, or the thing that gets us through our hard day of work or whatever, be it the food that we eat, the cars that we drive, the music that we listen to, the television movies that we watch, all of that comes from artists. And yet we don't view artists as this escalated thing, which they do in European countries, which is mind-blowing to me. But we look at them as they're down here. I like to liken it to like clergy. It's like, oh, you're closer to God, so therefore you've got to take this vow of poverty. And I'm like, no. I love to create. I love to be artistic and creative. I believe I'm the soul of humanity, but I still want to eat and pay my bills.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, like, within music, there's been this whole thing where music has been thought of like it's just free. AI thinks it's free. The AI tech pros, they think it's free. They don't think they should pay for the copyrights. They don't think they should pay for the masters. They don't think they should pay for anything. They should train it and like we can use it and we don't have to give you. It's like it's a public domain. It's like, no, it's not public domain. Like this is something I originally wrote. I should get paid for it. So
Yeah.
the idea that like a lot of art has been put into this category of like, that's like a nicety, but that's not that's not a career. Like, what's your real job? So that's
Right.
it's like, well, yeah, it is my real job, but then people feel bad if they say they want to be an artist because we say, well, don't you want to be an economist? You don't even want to be an actuary.
Right, right. Yeah, those the parents are like, "Oh, art." And that's a really funny thing for over almost 10 the first 10 years of doing this, I wouldn't refer to myself as an artist because I hated that reaction of that, "Oh." And it's like, no, there's not an O to it. So I used to call myself like a designer or a fabricator, some kind of
Yeah,
other like BS line that
more acceptable.
exactly.
Yeah, the thing is like people are starting to find out, like, like micro businesses, like micro level stuff. People find like you do these micro grants overseas, you get people to like teach themselves how to fish or like how to create their own business, right? So they're making
Mhm.
these little mini Etsy like businesses, and they're being
Right.
like micro industrialization. Like you can go and build your own little factory and build your own thing.
Yep.
And this idea that you can have like a micro base of fans. Like if you have a hardcore base of 100 fans, 1,000 fans, 10,000 fans, the industry and the music would tell you you got to have like a billion streams. You got to have like 100 million streams, or you're not viable. But there are a lot of
Mm.
artists that could run at 10,000, 15,000,
Mhm.
20,000 hardcore fans, and they could actually keep on working for the next 5, 10 years if they
Absolutely.
have that base.
That's actually one of the things that we talk about in my book is we talk about for creatives, you really need 100 people, like 100 super fans who are willing to buy from you and to be your voice out there. And with as big as our world is, it's become super small because of the internet and our ability to go online. So it's not difficult to find 100 people who believe in what you do. I mean, there's 8.3 billion people on this planet.
You should
Finding
be able to do
100
it.
of those is
Shouldn't be that
pretty
hard.
no, no, I shouldn't. So that's really what we say to concentrate on. And in the book, what we do is we talk about niching down so that you understand, like, because I love to ask these two questions, like, what are you passionate about? And for you to be like music, but then what is it that you do in music that separates you from everyone else? What's that thing that you do that you love that makes you stand apart? And then that's your business right there. That's your seed. And then from there, we kind of, we figure out like to niche down into that and then find your 100 people who really enjoy that niche. And then, like you said, it allows you to be successful. You're not going to be a millionaire. You're not going to be a billionaire, but you're going to be successful enough that you can, you
Yeah.
can survive. You can, live somewhere. You can eat and pay
It's
your
like
bill.
that merch table. Like if you're a small band and you're
Yeah.
like to say you had a band, you're in a Baltimore scene.
Hmm.
And if you're hitting every club in Baltimore, right? And you're selling t-shirts at the merch table, posters, cassettes, CDs, vinyl. These bands, like you can survive in that micro scene, and eventually you want to get bigger. But I've seen a lot of examples. I've had bands on from these scenes, like Baltimore, Chicago, LA, wherever the scene is. And there's certain scenes, markets where these people can like own that market. They can have that niche of those super fans, and they can survive. And they
Yeah.
actually no more than survive. They actually do okay, doing what they want.
Right. Absolutely. And that's been one of the best boons of my business is because I'm in the custom business of like custom art for the 20 years that I was doing it. And I would go to these trade shows and literally the banner behind me would say, I can make you anything that you want. And I would fail miserably at trade shows because it's so like they would glance at the tables. I don't want any of this, but I'm like, no, I'll make you whatever you want. But what I found is if I went online and I just started posting every random thing that I made, people were like, oh, this he's like Santa. He can make anything. And then I could really niche down on that customization. And so finding those 100 people, 1,000 people, and eventually it grows. I think I'm up
Yeah,
at
yeah.
like somewhere like 7, 8,000 people who have really enjoyed the stuff that I'm making.
Yeah, because if you get a niche, you like I always tell people like your secret sauce is you.
Right.
Like in the blues, there's the pentatonic scale. Everybody knows what it is, right? Everybody's gonna talk about the
Right.
crosswords, but it's how Lead Belly does it versus how Stevie Ray Vaughan does it versus how Hendrix does it. They can go at the same song, but how
Right.
they do that song is their secret sauce. It's the way they
Absolutely.
inflect their voice. It's the little niche things that people can do.
Hmm.
And that's what people today spend so much time cloning things, copying
Right.
things,
Yeah.
sampling things, trying to hit the algorithm. Is like, do you really is it, if you get 1 million views, but you have nobody's really clicking through, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't really matter.
Nope.
It's what your retention rate is. It's what your click through rate is. Like you could have 10,000 views, but your retention rate is way higher than the guy with 1 million. The click through rate could be way higher. So what does it matter?
Right, right. And like, wouldn't you rather be the person who only has 100 listens on your album, on your download, but you also had 100 sales, than
Yeah.
being a person who has 1 million listens but 0 sales, or even 3 sales? It's like, honestly, if I had 1 million listens but I only had 3 sales, that's a horrible return on
Yeah,
investment.
yeah, it's a bad return, but there are people who are selling services to get you those views, but it doesn't translate to anything real.
Correct.
So you
Yeah.
gotta start like waving through the vapor. There's a lot of
Yep.
vapor stuff.
Absolutely. And so you really got to concentrate on like really appealing to those 100 fans that really like what you do. So my biggest takeaway on that one is be honest with yourself, be authentic. And then if you're authentic, people latch onto that. That's one of those key things that I think a lot of especially beginning creatives, they get mixed up in. They feel like they've got to be like someone else. And I would rather see someone going against the grain, being authentic to themselves and standing out, than to be somebody who's just like everyone else that's out there.
It's boring. It was like I was going back and I was remembering why I liked REM. And I liked REM because Michael Stipe had a unique voice, a
Yep.
unique sense of poetry, and his songs were kind of complicated and vague. They
Mhm.
weren't clear, right, in the beginning, and you're like,
Right.
"Well, I'm trying to figure it out," and that was the thing, in the college radio crowd back then, we were all enamored trying to figure out what he was talking about, and it wasn't like everything else. It wasn't just clear cut. It wasn't just boy meets girl, loses girl, whatever. It was this kind of mysteriousness,
Yep.
and that sometimes is what you want. You want that vulnerability, the uniqueness, the strangeness of something is really that's the selling point.
Absolutely. 100%. Yep.
So when people start getting into like your book, the creative handbook for business, the creative
Mhm.
players handbook. So you tried to like gamify is like and maybe you can talk about like what about the gaming industry did you find, although that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to try to appropriate that.
So how it started was I've been coaching and consulting other creatives on how to build businesses for years, and I was meeting with this. It was a company of 3 individuals. They had managed to find a modicum of success, but they were struggling, and they needed someone to come in and help to kind of set them in the right direction, kind of help them move forward because they're creatives. They didn't really know the business scene, and so they brought me in, and I asked them, okay, so what is everyone's role here? And they all went, oh, we all do everything. I'm like, well, that's not how you run a business. Like, let's not do that. Let's concentrate on something. So, what do each of you do? Like, yeah, you can touch on all the other things, but what's like your main responsibility? And then they kind of hemmed and hawed on it. And I said, okay, I got this idea. Why don't I tomorrow I'll come back and we're going to play like Dungeons and Dragons Business Edition. And what we'll do is we'll give, instead of being like a ranger or a warlock or whatever, you're going to be your business title. And then I'm going to create a campaign in which we go out and we reproduce like business. We're going to go out and try to find more customers. We're going to go slay the competition, etc. But all your choices have to be made as this character, which is your main role in the business. And if your expertise is not the one who can lead you through this challenge, you've got to let the person who can speak up. And so we did this, and it just and that was just off the cuff. I was just trying to help relate to these people because they were gamers as well. And then I was like, this really worked and spoke to the creatives like really, really well. And so then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, everybody games. Like everybody games. I'm a kid from the 70s too. And so like I grew up playing Atari and all that
Yeah,
stuff. And so
2600. Yeah.
exactly. Playing I saw some Kaboom or some Journey Escape. There's an old throwback. But what I found out is that everyone understands the process of taking a character or a game and leveling it from level 0 to level 10. We all understand that basic principle. And in business, we have to do the same thing. But what happens is we start getting all this jargon, this like business jargon, and if you don't understand it, you like lose focus. It kind of goes over your head. You don't want to deal with it. And so you just kind of push it aside and just hope for the best, or you make a ton of mistakes. And so what I did with Gamify Business is I'm like, okay, well, let's actually take your role in your business, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a cog in the machine of your business there, and we're going to create a character sheet. And that character sheet is you, but with in this game. So you can separate yourself just enough so that when you're looking and internalizing and figuring out like, what's my flaws, what are my strengths and my weaknesses? No one likes to admit they have weaknesses, especially if you're an entrepreneur. But you can always say, well, my character's weakness is this. So it separates it just enough. And what we do is we don't do this book doesn't set it up. So we're not rolling any die. I know that's a big thing in like Dungeons and Dragons where you have to roll for your skill sets. But we can't do that because I would love to be able to roll a nat 20 and be like, I'm super strong now, but it's not how life works.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we actually put everything out on a sliding scale. So we go from, are you an experimental kind of creative, or are you more of like by the books type of person? And it's a sliding scale. And what we do is once we're done filling out all of that information, you have a pretty good blueprint about how you operate as an individual in your business or with your business. And then we go looking for group. And if you're watching this live, you'll see that I'm in a little bar scene here. And that's because the bar, the tavern, is where you find your groups. And so I play the tavern master, the guy kind of is in the game master. I'm the tavern owner. And the idea is that we go out and find other people to help boost your business, but you don't want people who are exactly the same as you. So when we're looking at that sliding scale, if you find people who are perfectly aligned with you, you're going to have great conversation, but you're going to be horrible business partners because you need someone to balance you out. You want to find people whose skills fall on the opposite spectrum so that you get a more well-rounded business whole as a party. And then you can go out there, and then it allows those people whose expertise you don't have to be able to really speak up, like I was talking about earlier. So that's the whole point behind it. We eliminate all of the technical jargon that goes with building a business, and we simplify it into something that we understand, leveling up our character, leveling up our gear, our equipment, and then finding gold and slaying dragons is as simple as finding your income and killing the competition.
Yeah, I think sometimes people get so caught up in like the MBA, PMP, jargon and acronyms.
Right.
And I'm in IT, so we're full of acronyms.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's like nothing but acronyms, right? And so it's like, okay, but it's like, what's the actual problem? Like, I love being my role is like, I'm a business system analyst, and what I look at is problems, like business cases. So I try to develop something down to what is the actual problem that the business person has
Mm-hmm.
versus somebody might come from a company and try to sell a product or a service and say that's going to solve the problem. My thing is, from the ground up, I want to know what is your actual problem, what's your inefficiency, what's your thing, and I'll come up with a business case, or what we call a use case.
Yep.
And that will actually identify what the problem is. It's technology agnostic. And then we'll figure out later, like, what technology would actually solve this.
Correct.
But I'm not going to try to sell a tech without knowing what the business problem is.
Yeah. Your case study is what we would call a campaign. But see, you say case study and people are like, I don't know what that is. And they might shut down a little bit because of it, especially creative. But if I said, oh, we're going to go on a campaign, what's the campaign? Well, we'll figure it out as we, like we just have an end goal, which is the problem that you're trying to solve. And then we just approach it in a way that is comfortable.
Yeah, you've gotten rid of the wall.
Correct. Yeah. And it's because, I mean, honestly, if you can run a lemonade stand, you can be an entrepreneur. It's not that hard. It's just you don't know the steps. And unfortunately, there are a progression of steps that you have to take to run a business. And every single one of those, like, people have been, I know a guy who runs a lawn mowing business, and he does really, really well, but he does not have an MBA. He was mowing lawns in high school and decided, hey, I could upscale this and hire more guys on, get more yards, and we're good to go. That's an entrepreneur right there. And what I found was that if we can eliminate that, if we can, that gate, we can kind of blow that out of the water and just go with just simple terminology and just talk about things and something that we're familiar with, which is gaming, then it opens up the world of possibilities to people who might have been a little bit nervous about stepping into it, or it kind of lowers the Mount Everest mountain of entrepreneurship.
It's kind of like when you give people do-it-yourself tools.
Yeah.
Like in the world of music, it's like Pro Tools and what we call DAWs, and then basically in arts is like being able to use Photoshop. Right?
Yep.
Suddenly opens up that if you still have to have artistic talent, right, to use it. But once you create these tools, like and right now in music, we have people who are like DJ producers. They're not like they went to a music college and they learned music theory. Sometimes they've been able to use this tech to actually do the same thing that somebody that went to like a conservatory.
Yeah.
Like you have people who are like hip hop producers, EDM producers that come out of left field, no musical training, but they knew a groove. They
Right.
knew a beat. They had an idea. They found a way to do it because they got a tool that was accessible to them,
Hmm.
that allowed them to actually do it without having all the overhead of the 4 years or 8 years of training.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing is like that person had a spark. They had an idea. They had they had an ear for that one bit, and they were able to capitalize on that. And for those people who do it, they're rare. I mean, you probably count on your hands how many of those people you've encountered or you know about. But I'm sure there are a bunch more that are just too quiet, too unsure to be able to say, I could do this, because they think that there is this threshold that they have of
Or there's a gate.
accomplishment that they have.
Yeah, you're like you can't you like the gate used to be like you got to be like a Marvin Gaye.
Right.
Like
Right. I wish.
you to be a singer, right? You're like, and
Right.
then Bob Dylan came along and said, "No, you don't." Right? So so
Right.
that Dylan was the big kind of resonating thing. Like when Dylan showed up in the '60s, it opened it up that you got the like alternative college radio, indie to this day, grunge, like all those things kind
All
of
right.
come from Dylan saying, "I don't have to have perfect pitch. I don't
Yeah.
have to be like Frank Sinatra. I don't got to be Marvin Gaye. I don't have to have that like that singer quality voice. I have to have passion. I have to be a good writer, but I
Yeah.
can present it in a way that opened it up. You get the punk aesthetic. Like you got people who are willing to come along and say, "Hey, I don't even have to know how to sing. I just have to be passionate." Right?
Correct. Yeah. You've got to have that desire, that drive to want to do it. And I find that authenticity, being authentic to yourself, is almost like the jet fuel to get you there. It's if you have that confidence in yourself and what you're trying to do, then that takes you a lot farther than people imagine it should. I like to say I'm willfully ignorant when it comes to my abilities, because I'm willing to try everything
Yeah.
and just be like, chips
Yeah,
fall
but
where they
you're
may.
not afraid to fail, like,
Right.
failing upward is the point, like, if you're into music, you look at the guys like look at a guy like Miles Davis.
Hmm.
Miles Davis was a genius, but
Yeah.
Miles Davis, he was like the king of bebop. It was a
Mm.
canon. Then he went to fusion, and people in his canon said, "Oh, now you're a Judas." He went into something they said, like, "How can you do that? How c like, that's not jazz," and people to
Right.
this day will argue that fusion is not bebop, it's not traditional jazz. They don't even think it's jazz, and so, like, sometimes you have to be willing to just even if you're in the canon, you break the canon.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what's going to make you stand out. That's what's going to rise you above the rest of them. And we can all, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being in the middle. The middle is okay. A middle is a comfortable place to be as long as you're following your passion and you're doing the thing that you love. That's okay. But if you really want to rocket to the top, sometimes you've got to rub people the wrong way. I mean, that's just,
Yeah,
and you got to
yeah.
challenge it.
The thing you put out, like, that's different is not gonna get, like, rave reviews.
No,
The
no.
first time anything comes out, if you go back to Hendrix showing up, right? He was told that you couldn't put the feedback on tape, that you
Oh,
couldn't do that. The
hmm,
engineers would like say he couldn't do it, and he had to force it
hmm,
because they were taught that that doesn't go on record, that
interesting.
those sounds are bad sounds. And so sometimes when you're an innovator, the whole system says like you shouldn't do that. And
Yeah,
to buck that, you just have to be the kind of person that says, I don't care, I'm going to do it.
yeah,
Right. And sometimes that's a hard place to be because people want to feel safe. They want to feel approved. They want to feel recognized. And if you go and do something that's on the outer limits of the bell curve, like
right.
then you're gonna get stung because people are gonna say they hate it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what do you do? Does your ego come in and say, I can't stand being told that this is crap? you know,
I,
you know,
I think a
where are you
lot of that
willing to
comes.
deal with that?
The internet, I think, is great for this though, because like I said earlier, like if you were growing up and you're in Chicago and you're trying to get into the music scene and people didn't like what you wanted, but all you could reach was Chicago, you're going to fail. You're going to fall out of it unless you move. But now with the internet, you can try something and just put it out there, and somebody out there will find you. because my kids listen to some of the most bizarre stuff on Spotify. I'm like, how did you find this? And they're like, oh, we just dig down the rabbit hole. And I'm like, that's awesome, because they're finding artists who maybe have 30, 40 downloads of their songs, but my kids are putting them on repeat and they're sharing them with all their friends.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
what you want.
niche is
You want
great.
these innovative, exploring fans,
Yeah.
that they used to have a lot more of them. But like the idea is like the law of attraction. It's like, well, you throw something out in the ether, and now somebody in Norway might dig it, but somebody in your town doesn't. Right?
Right.
Somebody in Argentina digs it, but nobody in Chicago digs it. But that don't matter, because like once you put it out in the ether, you find your tribe.
Exactly that. That's how my son stumbled into Sabaton, which is a Swedish power metal band that sings about war, like historic war. Like, how did you find that? And he's like, I love them. I'm like, all right, cool, dude.
That's great. But like, we just found that like in the small little record stores, like the underground comic stores. I would go find like a Robert Crumb book, or I go find something from Dave Sim or ElfQuest or some like independent comic company, Fantagraphics or something. I'll always be looking for the little guy. Yeah, I grew up on Marvel, DC.
Sure.
But then I was like, I like Aardvark Vanheim. I like these little small presses. Like the small presses would have these books that I never saw before. And it's like, that's what I was into. It's like, I wanted to kind of push it. It's like, well, everybody knows Spider-Man, everybody knows Superman. I want something different.
And that's why when Eastman came out with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the black and white graphic novel, it was groundbreaking. It was awesome because it was everything you wanted. It was graphic, it was black and white, it was turtle, like anthropomorphic people.
Yeah, it kind of spoke to me like Service. Because I had been in that kind of mode of looking for stuff like Service and ElfQuest and stuff like that. And when I saw that, I said, "Whoa, somebody's bringing that back."
Yeah,
which I was all over. I was buying all the Service, all 300. I got all of them. But
you got them all. Nice.
But it's like, I was a big fan of indie press because I like the fact, like when McFarlane went and created Image, it's like, I like the fact that he's like, yeah, why not? I mean, I like Kirby. He left and went to Pacific Comics and created Captain Victory. I'm like, yeah, he was the creator of all the stuff. Yeah. And he got tired of them.
Right, because what happens is then it becomes, and it's not a sellout, it becomes corporate, because then it becomes a machine, and then you lose your authenticity because they're like, no, this is what works, and we're not going to change the thing that works. We're going to keep rehashing it over and over again until we've bled it dry. Whereas the artist in them, they're like, no, it's the art that got into it. That's why they were doing it. And so McFarlane, I bought every single first that came out of Image. I've still got them somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it was that they were like, no, I'm tired of the DC machine and the Marvel machine. I'm going to go and do something that's completely different. I love Spawn. I've got every Spawn.
Yeah, Spawn's awesome,
dude. And what I really loved about Spawn was the action figures that came out, because McFarlane, he broke the mold on action figures, because before then it was Kung Fu Grip, and he actually figured out how to articulate hands. And when I saw those toys in the early 90s, I was blown away.
That's how you got into starting to create your business like that. That you got into making the
all the action figures and
figures and things, the collectibles.
Exactly.
You did that for a bunch of big firms, right? You were doing that for like Disney or
Disney, Nickelodeon. I've worked for Universal, done some stuff for Harry Potter. You name it, I've probably had my finger in it a little bit. And and it's that passion of, like, one, pushing it a little bit, which is always great, but then, like, trying to stay, one, it's about building skill sets, which we can get into it at a different time. But it's once you know that, and just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, giving people the unexpected. And I think that's always, it's always going to be a boon for me, especially, but for a lot of creators out there. If they say, this is what we want, just like under promise and over deliver.
Like, also the tactile feel of like an action figure or the collectibles like that. It kind of goes to like physical comics. I was a child in the 70s. I used to go to the newsstand and went to Direct Market, going to Rebel Peddler, Springfield, Mass. It was like the little comic shop, and all these back issues, then finding, the stuff like Service, Flaming Carrot, stuff like that. But just going off and getting into it, and then seeing in that store, like the action figures and the other collectibles and the tangible things.
Yeah.
And I still think, in today's world, it's so digital. I always like it when I see the kids still physically going and getting the comics and the
Absolutely.
collectibles and the cards, from the baseball cards to all types of cards. I just I just like people having the physical stuff because I don't know, it just speaks to me.
I'm a book guy. I'm a tangible as well. I mean, like I can encounter like the smell of a comic book store brings me back to being, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I love that. My middle son is really into vinyl right now, and he just loves to put on the hi-fi headphones, sit back
Yeah,
and listen to his vinyl. And we're like, you're 14 years old. You grew up on Spotify, on digital, on like CDs, maybe a little bit, but he's like, no, I love the sound of the crackle of the vinyl and watching it turn. He's like that to him, and we're all about it. So we'll go to record stores, we'll go to bookstores that have albums and stuff, and he'll just spend hours looking through all that stuff. And I love that appreciation that he has for the tangible medium. But what's nice about it is he also will go into the digital, and he'll search out these, like I said, extremely random bands.
rare bands, like the underground bands, like the unknown
Yeah,
bands.
yeah,
I always would talk about, like, you read Rolling Stones, like, I'm going for the bottom 500. Like, I'm going for the
sure,
stuff that's, like, on Sub Pop, the stuff
yeah.
that's on IRS Records, the stuff that's, like, on, the smaller record companies, SST. Like, I was a big fan of, like, these really small bands like Husker Du
Oh, I love Husker Du.
And the replacements and, Black Flag. And see, I was always going for Camper Van Beethoven. I was always looking for the people who were in the underground on MTV 120 minutes when they used to play music. Uh, you
Dude,
know,
liquid television all the way, those old, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I gotta say, first off, you're throwing out so many references, which are throwing me back. I'm like, dude, this is so awesome.
like I'm a total, I'm a child of the 70s. I like stuff that spoke to me. Like I liked about vinyl was you pick up a Led Zeppelin record and you got like, the little twirly thing on it. It's like the
Yeah,
merchandising and the art that went into an album cover, the
those
art that
choice.
goes into the liner notes, the
Yeah,
physical experience of taking that record, looking at the at it, reading the lyric sheet while you're listening to it on the vinyl, and you're not skipping around like a playlist.
mm-mm,
So you
mm-mm.
actually are getting the full picture of what that artist wanted to convey
Yeah,
rather than just the single, which I think a lot of kids today, if they just get the playlist, they're not really getting the full picture of that artist
right.
because they get one song and one song doesn't tell you who that band is,
Nope.
and that's what
Nope.
I like about diving a little deeper. But it's hard today to dive
Yeah.
deeper because we're kind of told not to dive deep. They just get a little
Right.
piece of everything.
Exactly. And it's when they, but the thing is, I mean, we say a lot of, oh, this generation, the kids today, but kids today have figured it out. They know they have the best of both worlds. And it's honestly so cool to see that they're willing to, take the little bits here and there, but then they're like, no, we're gonna dive deep, and their friends get involved. So it's a lot like when we were in the 70s and 80s, or where, I was sharing mixtapes with all my friends just to introduce new sounds. And then, we'd end up buying the entire catalog, sitting down, listening to them all. And they're doing the same thing. Kids are doing the
That's
same thing. They're
cool.
just using different mediums to do it.
Different be able to do it. But yeah, because if you could use it like the cloud-based stuff as an intro, it's
Yeah.
just I think some people kind of use it as background.
Mm,
Or like even if you watch a movie, like you're watching a movie, but you're on your phone. You're watching a movie, but you're on a computer. So then like
right.
you don't actually get the cues. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you watch people today, if they watch a 1970s movie, they're like, I can't watch this. The pacing is too slow
Yes.
because they can't stay in it.
Right.
They can't stay in the art because it demands too much of their attention.
Now, have you recently like seen a movie where it was slow pitched like that, and you're like, this is such a good movie? Because we're trained to sit and watch. We're trained to know like television didn't all drop at one time. It's like it was on at 7 o'clock, and if you weren't home at 7 o'clock, you were going to miss that show until
Yeah.
until it reran in the summertime. So like
Yeah, you
me,
missed it.
yeah. And so I'm very much like I'm a patient consumer when it comes to stuff like that. When I go to a movie, like I don't. It doesn't need to be. Honestly, I don't like it when it's explosions every 30 seconds to
Yeah,
keep my
to
attention.
explain to me. I like watching, like, Stanley Kubrick 2001, right?
Yeah,
Because that's a very slow-paced movie.
it
It's
is.
like a lot of stuff is, like, nonverbal,
Hmm.
and you have to pay attention,
Right.
and if you don't, then you're gonna miss it, right?
Yeah.
So, the generation that doesn't want it all spelled out. Like, I don't need it all spelled out. I like to go and uncover the little Easter eggs, or actually go back and watch it again, you know? And I don't know. I mean, I was a kid that went and watched Star Wars like 12 times. I mean, I went to the theater to see it like that many times,
Right.
because
Yeah.
to me, it's like, oh, I hadn't seen anything like that since 2001. Um,
Now, speaking of like Easter eggs and stuff, like I found with like a good book, I'm actually writing I wrote a fiction book, and I'm dealing with editors right now, and every single one of them is like, no, that like I'm building up suspense, I'm building up mystery, I'm not spelling it out, and they're like, no, we need to know who the bad guy is right away, who did it, right? I'm like, no, and I'm like, and they're like, well, what was it? And I'm like, I don't know, you tell me. And they're like, no, we have to know. I'm like, no, we don't. Let it be. Let there be some
yeah,
mystery
they're
to it, you
so
know?
like, because it used to be, you could have like a 300,000 word book. Now they're telling you could have like a 60,000 word book,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
spread it out over like three
Yeah.
editions, and then everything's got to get to the point. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like, to me, with a song. Like, if I'm writing a song, I'm more of like a progressive writer. My stuff's gonna go like 6, 7 minutes, and
Yeah.
everybody's telling you got to go like 2 minutes. It's like, but I don't even get started in 2 minutes. So it's like,
Right.
it's like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm still gonna live in my world and put law
Mhm.
of attraction to happen, because like that's where my head's at. So,
Authenticity, man. That's where it's at. Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, people are starting to realize that, it's like fluff stuff. Like, it's like, you have a junk food place, right? You have your fast food place. You go there when you don't have time,
Yeah.
but when you have time, you go to that diner, that, or that low, that the hole in the wall place that has the chef that does it like, oh, nobody does it like that. That's why I'm gonna go there. If I don't have time, then I'll go get wherever I can get. But if I
Yeah.
do have time, I'm gonna get the thing that I want. They
Absolutely.
actually, it's gonna, may have to sit in line, maybe I have to wait for people to get up, but like, it's worth it.
Right. But you got to be in that mindset. And I think that a lot of people have gotten out of that mindset. And unfortunately, that's social media for you. You know, we're all about that dopamine kick of the instant likes and all that stuff. And I love to, that's actually one of the things I dispel in this book. It's like the social media, that machine is broken. It breaks us. And they actually did a study, and I just was reading results on it, that doom scrolling, we don't actually get the dopamine kick from watching repeat all these different videos. We get the dopamine from the swipe.
The actual
It,
act of doing a swipe
the
is the
actual
thing,
app. And so that's just training us to be like, nope, next, next, next. And then just to
and you're
get that
not
little kick.
digesting anything. Like, you're
Yeah,
getting so many things, you're not digesting any of it,
not a
and
bit.
it's
And they
kind of
did a,
like if you
yeah,
do a test, like a SAT type of test, you don't retain any of that. Like, if
no,
you do a blue book, you will retain way more. If you have an
right,
oral exam, you will retain way more. So I went to a school where they did like Bowdoin College, like you had to do Socratic method and blue book for most everything,
yep.
right? So if you couldn't explain it back to the professor, you weren't going to
Then you
get
didn't
through.
know it. Yeah,
Like,
you didn't
you,
know it.
you didn't have the luxury of like a SAT type of thing. And
No,
really, that is the real way to retain things. But we've
absolutely.
been told that these other fast, quick ways to measure people, it doesn't really do you any service.
No, and I'm not saying that, there's no place for that type of marketing, for social media marketing or for getting your product out there. But just know that if, like if I was to go find your music, I wouldn't want to go out there and try to find a 10-second clip because I don't think I'm going to get the full exposure of what you produce. So you've got to put something out there that's going to be enough of an interest that I will then go dig down and spend the time with it and get to really know it. So I mean, there is a time and place for all of these things, but they're tools as opposed to being the way it has to be and that consistent way that it is. And so, yeah, spend the time. Be in all places, but dedicate some time to being like really in the moment with the things that you care about. And I think that you'll be much much more well-rounded, much more fulfilled as a human.
Now, what do you think is one of the core things, given this like information, automation, artificial intelligence age, as a creative person? Like, I understand that like tools have to be looked at and everything advances. I'm a synthesis, and there were people that when the synthesizer came, they said that was terrible.
Yep.
They said it was a piece of junk. It wasn't, that are not human. It was going to take all the creativity out. So, but when we come to like AI, it's a different thing versus a Moog. AI technology compared to a Moog,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing.
No. No. And my take on AI is, technology is a pendulum, and what happens is we're riding the pendulum always. I remember when the iPhone came out and everybody's like, that's the dumbest thing that is ever going to come out. No one's going to pick up a phone. Who wants a tiny computer in their pocket? Now it's like everybody has a computer in their pocket, and it's the same thing with the AI. It's like right now we're in that part where we're over here where everyone is riding AI like it is, it's our chariot to heaven.
Savior, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, no, it's a tool. It's a hammer is really what it is. And what it can do if we use it properly is reinforce and like help to like articulate what we're trying to get across in areas where we are deficient in that ability. So if maybe you're a writer, but you are really good at storytelling, but you're not really good at writing it down. And so you can dictate now and then have AI kind of help to flourish it up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's nothing, that's a tool. That's just you using it because honestly, you could hire an editor to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, you can hire a ghostwriter to do the same thing,
Exactly. Now it's still your general idea, but you're allowing this tool to kind of help you out. It's like hiring another person. I'm an artist and I do digital work, I do physical work. And when AI started scrubbing the internet, taking everybody's work, whatever, I was there when everyone started, pitchforks and torches and saying, burn it down. But the reality is in my opinion, is that AI is just a tool. It cannot replace human beings. It's too perfect, and it doesn't create it. Well, I mean, it's perfect in a way that a machine is perfect. Like when you're playing a synthesizer, you don't have anybody who's missing the beat. You don't have the snare always sounds exactly the same. Where I used to play drums, you hit a snare off to the side, sounds completely different than hitting it in the center.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, yeah. I mean, sometimes what you want to do is what we call like dissonance or microtonal errors. Like, and we actually have like rhythmic inconsistencies, which is something or you're not on time. But like that actually within some musical forms, there's a point to it. Like if you think about Keith Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Richards is known as kind of a ramshackle, a little off the beat guitar player, right? They're actually for the Stones exactly what you need.
Yeah.
But like other bands, maybe it wouldn't work. Like Yes, probably not. They're very precise, so it would not work there. So it's like sometimes you got to know where it works. It's like the thing about that human factor. That human factor is what's necessary for me for art, and this is where I get some tech bros to start telling me like AI is going to replace all musicians. I'm like, really?
No.
Like, I understand why you want that to be a profit center for you, but that's not the truth.
No, it's not. I mean, I have, like, if you go through this magical door right here, you'd see that right now I've got 11 3D printers. I got a laser cutter. I got all those things. And I can reproduce a lot of art. The thing is every single piece that I make, if I start digital and I go all the way through the digital like fabrication aspect of it, it's missing some soul.
Yeah.
I use them for things like R2-D2 because R2-D2 is a machine. He was machined. But if I want to hand sculpt something, it's the errors that I'm putting into it.
Yeah, that's the thing that people don't get. It's the happy accidents. It's like a diamond. It's imperfections which makes it great. Like any painting, any painter will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I intended to do. Like if I can get to 95% of what I intended, maybe this piece that works. But sometimes the piece I got 75% of what I intended to do, and the rest of it's like happy accident. It's actually my better piece. And so
it will resonate more with people. Yeah, when people look at one of my sculptures that I did by hand, they don't know why they're drawn to it versus a 3D representation of it, the exact same piece. Like I sculpt Mario from Super Mario all the time, but you can 3D print it. And you can put the two side by side, and people will be drawn to the sculpture because I didn't make it right. It's got that little bit of off, but that little bit of off draws the human eye because we as humans are off. We're not
want that thing that's like custom. Like, why do people go customize their car? They get it off the assembly line, and then they customize that Barracuda.
Yeah.
And they make it like no other Barracuda that exists, or no other Challenger that exists, or no other Mustang, Shelby. They change it. It's like, why? Because they want it to be theirs.
Yep.
So the idea that everybody wants the same thing is like kind of idiosyncratic. Like that's not true. People
absolutely not.
They really don't.
Now, but what we can do is like AI was originally created to help people with coding because coding has to be the same continuously.
Well, it helps a
And
lot with that.
yeah, it absolutely does. And then when it got to writing, it was like, well, how can we make writing better? Well, here are these rules that everybody has to use for writing in whatever language you're
Well,
in.
grammar
And
is
so we're going
fine.
to help help you with that. But then now it's like with the art, like you go in and do AI art, and you can tell
See
just
it.
by looking at it
It
that
just
it's
looks
AI.
like if somebody just did this weird collage.
Right.
Doesn't really like it. It looks like maybe it's passable to somebody that's not an artist.
Yeah.
But my daughter's an artist. She's a sequential graphic artist, like a cartoonist, and she was like, "Oh, it kills her," because like people are telling her, "Oh, I can get my logo done through AI," and it's like, "Well, you're gonna get a lot of strikes.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of copyright infringement strikes on that logo because that logo has been used how many times? Because everybody's asked for the same thing. It's like the reason you use an artist is they're actually gonna give you that secret thing. It's not gonna get the strike. It's not gonna
Exactly.
get infringement because it's actually unique."
But your daughter, who's the cartoonist, I'm sure she uses tweening, which
Yeah.
allows you to draw keys. You manually produce the key frames, but then you've got tweening to help accentuate, to help move the
Yeah,
process
you
further.
always put that little secret sauce to your own capability.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have
But
your
that's
own
really
style.
what. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still yours, but you're allowing a tool to help you be more efficient, so that the cost gets down, so that you can get it out to your
Yeah, you can go
clients or
faster. So you can get the frames done faster, you can get the
yeah,
pages done faster,
yeah,
but you still like, in some cases, like, she'll still hand color. I mean, she'll
sure,
choose the colors because it's like, if it's important, you have to decide, "What am I gonna do? Am I gonna do the lettering and do my own lettering to give it that unique look?"
yeah,
Because sometimes the computer lettering will work and people will go with it, but there's something about the old school lettering, if you go back and look at old comics or even independents, having a letterer actually do it.
yeah.
It's an art.
Because they're imperfect,
Yeah.
and sometimes they touch the bubble, sometimes one letter is really big, but you're like, I understand that emphasis, that flaw, that humanity is being brought back to it. And the inflection, like when you're reading those old 70s, 80s, 90s comics before they went to everything being written by computer, so it was more legible, but you would read those and you could understand the inflection of the
Yeah,
letters
there's an
just by
intent.
looking at the font. Yeah,
There's an artistic intent that's being conveyed,
yeah,
and sometimes, like, we like to get some of the independent books where they still do it, and it's like, yeah, there's something about that that it speaks to me because I don't know, maybe because I'm too old school, but but
I get
yeah,
it. I'm
again,
saying,
like, tech is good, and,
yeah,
I use tech, like, even in music, like, if I wanna use something to, like, change, like, a virtual processor, signal processor, like, I can't afford a Neve board, so I get a
right,
virtual signal processor that approximates a 74 Neve.
yeah.
Well, that's because I can do it, right? Now, if I actually had the real Neve, yeah, I would use it, but I don't have it.
Right, right, right. But your limitations. But now you're not limited by your pocketbook. You're
Yeah.
limited by what you can find and how inventive you can be with it.
Yeah, and that's where it can be good, but it's like the issue I have is somebody like, I'm gonna go say I wrote an original song and actually scrubbed like 100 songwriters and approximated this thing and said it was a virtual songwriter, and it had nothing to do with these other guys that actually gave me the real content. That's
Right.
where I have an issue where, like,
I agree.
if somebody gave you something, you should cite, footnote, endnote, research. Plagiarism is like, you should cite where it comes from. You should be able to know where it came from. And if somebody did contribute, they should get noted.
The credit. Yeah. Credit is where credit's due. Because you wouldn't have any of that if you didn't have the creator creating it in the first place. AI does not generate in a vacuum. It pulls from a source.
Yeah.
And we've got to honor the source that's out there. But to go back to that with creatives and the whole AI debate, one of the biggest arguments we have is, they're stealing our jobs. But I can guarantee you, like, I'd lay money on the line on this one, that if somebody is going to AI to generate their art, they were never going to be your customer in the first place. Even if they steal your style, they would never pay you for it, because that's been going on since the dawn of time. People steal other people's work because they don't want to spend the money
They
on
don't
it.
want
And
to spend
so
the money. They want to
yeah,
keep it, cheap. Yeah, there's always somebody that doesn't want to do it. It just depends on how many people jump on that train.
right. Yeah,
Is the
right.
concern.
But the thing is, I don't think a lot of people, like, I've been in this long enough that I know that there are people out there who would genuinely appreciate the real deal. you know. But
Yeah.
I also have definitely met those people who's like, I'll pay you $10. And I'm like, it's $1,000 piece. It's like, no, you know, and those just aren't your customer. So go
Yeah.
find your 100 that actually are that genuinely
Find a
appreciate
real,
what
like
you're
I
doing.
found authors that like they try to play the AI game for their
Yeah.
covers, and then they
Yeah.
said, you know what, it really doesn't speak to me. So they
No.
started going back to real illustrators
Yeah.
because they realized it's important to the overall craft that if I have this discussion with this artist, that they hear what I want, or they read my book and they interpret something, and I appreciate that process, and I actually want that process for my project, and I think there's a lot of people that want that. And so,
Yeah.
like, and you'll find them, like you said, it's like law of attraction. People will get drawn to each other.
But you can also find, like, I know a lot of people who, like, I know a lot of writers who are not visual artists. They just can't do it, but they can type it into a chat, no, into an AI enough that they can get an idea going that they can then give that idea to an
Yeah,
artist. And
but
say,
that's what
"Hey,
the
turn it
point of
the act."
AI is. I mean, that was the original point, is that you would do that and then bring it to somebody. But
Right.
the issue which happening right now, we're in this phase right now where people think they can skip that.
No,
And I think that's gonna be short-lived,
it
because the
will.
results of that are a lot of times, like, problematic and don't actually give you what you thought you were getting.
Well,
And
it's
I
not
think
only that, but then the artists themselves. I mean, this is what the writer's strike was about 2 years ago. Was they're like, you cannot replace us as idea writers. Like, we come up with this original information. You cannot replace us with an AI by putting in a prompt for this, because what you're going to produce is garbage. And there are movies out there. I won't name any, but there are definitely some on Netflix right now that were
they're doing
written
that.
by AI, and they are just dead.
Well,
There's
they're
no
taken because there's no life. The thing about, like, humans is we bring life because we are life.
correct.
Computers are not, like, we're not to the point where it's data, where there's
Right.
some sentience. It's not
Right.
Gene Roddenberry world yet.
Not
And
yet. It'll
yeah,
get there, but it's not
yeah,
yet.
yeah, but I mean, for something to be sentient, it has to go through pain, it has to understand pain, it has to understand emotions. We get
Yep.
computers that actually, then you're gonna have to give them rights, and then they're not gonna be able to work 100% without giving them, like, they're gonna work a 40-hour week because they're actually a person, right? So it's like you're not really gonna gain as much as you thought.
Nope. Nope. We're just gonna have somebody who's gonna not want to do the job that, or who's gonna do the job that we didn't necessarily want to do, and then hopefully that will lead us to have time to be more creative. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's all open. You know, it's not the end of the world. Everybody thinks when some, when the car came, I guess everybody working with horses, they were like, oh, everything's done. You
No,
know, but
no,
you know, there's
Like,
still places for that. You know, it's not as many.
absolutely.
So
It was amazing that back then every poor person had a horse and only rich people had a car, but now every poor person has a car and only rich people have horses.
yeah, it
Like,
flips. It flips. You never know how it's gonna flip over. But
nope.
yeah, it's super interesting what you're doing. Like, so is this the book that we've discussed?
That's this
This
one
book
here.
is that your only book, or are you working on more?
Nope. I've actually got this one here too. So this is the Creative Player's Handbook to Business. This is the book that I recommend that you walk through to figure out your business plan. You can do it as an individual or as a small group. I have a workbook that goes with it that you can actually fill out. And then this one's called the Game Master's Guide to Business. So the
Oh,
whole point of an RPG based business plan is storytelling. Like, we've been sitting here for almost an hour now telling stories back and forth, and we're hoping that the goal is that people will listen to this and they'll remember bits of it, because we remember things better through story. And so what the Game Master's Guide does is it teaches you how to teach this book.
oh wow.
And then what I'm working on right now, I've got 3 different campaigns going on that I'm creating, which allows us to answer questions like, how do I deal with social media? Or what's it take to trademark something? And, or one of my favorites is, how do I figure out what to charge? And so
Yeah,
we have
that's
these like little campaigns that you can go on, and it's like, oh, now I get it. And so those are the other things that I'm working on.
yeah, it's interesting because the music, like, I think there was this point where, like, Radiohead put out a record and said, "Oh, what do you want to pay for it?" You know,
Yeah.
and so bands have tried that, and sometimes they don't try it again.
No, because the answer is nothing.
And people say they don't want to pay
Typically,
anything for it.
right. But the thing is that's great publicity, and publicity has its own return. You know,
Yeah,
it's like there's no I mean, there can be bad moves in business, but usually something like that ends up being, we use it in theater all the time, the pay what you can night. And it's really just to get butts in seats, but we want to show them that this is something that can be entertaining. Radiohead's like, you actually want to listen to my music, and they'll go buy the back catalog. They'll come and buy a subscription service to the theater, those kind of things. And so that's really where that benefits us. But yes, on those nights, it's like, yeah, everybody's paying a penny or nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how people figure out in this world, like, how do you get somebody to, like, because there's so many people with the technology today to, like, oh, how can I get that for free? How can I get the movie for free? Get to get the knockoff. Don't have to buy the original. Buy the clone. Don't buy. There's so many opportunities for people to, like, not actually buy the original thing.
Yeah, but we've been doing that for decades. I mean, I used to get an album and I'd record it on a tape and I'd give it to my friend and I'd be like, check out this band. And, we're all doing it. We just did it with a different fashion. But now it's more widespread and more easily accessible. It doesn't take as much work to do it. And so it just seems simpler. And in there, since it's simple, it just seems like it's everywhere. But I mean, honestly, we've been doing it forever. Like, knockoffs have been around forever.
But still, with, like, the things you do in terms of, like, your figures, and, like, if you do something that's really unique, it's very customized, and people will want to pay for it.
Correct. Yep. I have a design. So there was a movie prop from something called The Mummy, which is the Brendan Fraser 1994 movie. They have this thing called the key to Hamunaptra, which opens up and it's got inside of it's got the map. So I probably made about 60, 70 of those. But the problem was, and it's even in the movie, it doesn't operate right because there's springs involved. And you can see it when she opens it, one of the springs doesn't function. So she moves it with her finger. But then I got to thinking, I was like, let's redesign this as though I was an ancient Egyptian who was really making this. They didn't have springs back then. Everything was mechanical. So I'm like, let's redesign. So I redesigned it so that it opens like an iris, so that it blooms like a flower. It's beautiful. And I sell that one and it sells really well because people are like, this one will last me forever. But I have had plenty of people go, can you put the design online so I can get it, so I can make my own? And the answer is no. Like, you can get the other one, which has its flaws and all that. And I'm happy to give you that design day and night because it's out there and everybody wants it. But that one that I've customized, that I spent the years of, like, really tinkering with, trying to figure out, like, no, that one's mine. And if you want it, you can buy it. And that's really
that's the price of admission. You got to lay down the law.
Exactly.
Yeah, because like if you want the signed, like, limited vinyl, you got to buy the signed limited vinyl.
100%. We just bought one for my kids, so we know all about that one. Or you stand outside the stage door and you dedicate your time, that commodity that's really precious, to get the person to sign it. I mean, you do those things because you want to elevate whatever it is that you have that you really
want the collectability of it. It's like a comic book guy, you want that first edition. You want that rare printing because there was an error in the printing. Or this one has, like, oh, this one says 20 cents, and in this market it was 25 cents, and we did this many versions of this. And then the comic book freaks are all like, yeah. Like, I want that one with the color and separation error. Like, I want this. Like, okay. But that's what people look for.
Right. But it's just unique enough that they're willing to pay a higher dollar for it. But they'll go look at the 25-cent one, and they'll buy that one too, and then they'll flip through it, they'll read it. But the one that's special to them, no, they
lock it away.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what a collector does. And that's really what my pieces, the higher end pieces that I have, that's what those are for. Those are for collectors.
So the collector market, you still, like, well, I mean, that's what artists try to get to. They try to get that hardcore collector market, the person that's going to buy all my pieces. The person that's always looking for my pieces, like the hardcore super fan.
Yeah. And I have those. There are a handful of pieces that I make that I'm the only guy who makes it, or I'm the one who makes, like, the elevated, what we call a master version, master quality version of the prop. And I make a handful of those, and they are expensive. Don't get me wrong. And I don't sell a lot of those, but that's because it has a value to it. It takes time and effort and whatever to make these pieces. And so, they're out there. That is something that I offer, but I also offer a cheaper version of it that is not to that level, so that it's accessible to other people.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's like the way when people go get the fifth printing or the 8th printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 versus here's the original. I don't touch that one. I'll read the one that's like the 8th printing.
Exactly. I don't feel bad touching this one. Yeah, that one's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's super interesting to talk to another artist. We always hit the hour mark quicker than we ever imagined. We actually hit it. We're hitting it, and
Excellent.
we got your gamifybusiness.com podcast link and
That
your
that link there is actually to get the first 2 chapters of the book for free. So if you go
cool.
to that link there, that'll actually all you got to do is you got to give me your email address and your name. It doesn't put you on to, you will not be spammed. I don't do any of that stuff. I just like to collect and see where it's coming from. And then it'll say, where'd you hear about us? And so if you say Phantom Electric Ghost, I'll know exactly where it's coming from so that we can all get some data, which is what we're all after here. But then it gives you the first 2 chapters so you can check out what the book's about. And it kind of talks about the character creation process.
Well, that's awesome. That we want to encourage people that these links right now aren't clickable, but within like LinkedIn, YouTube, Kick, in the podcast description, those links are clickable. And
Excellent.
on every other platform, will be on Spotify, be on Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all the ones that by tomorrow and today. And I want to let people know, please click on the link that we provide, and you'll be able to get further details as we just discussed, and support the people that are on the show. Support Paul Pape by clicking on the link, and we do encourage you to do that. And I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well.